Hey, what is good, you guys? I am Jaydeep and welcome back to the channel. So let me be very clear. The objective behind making this video is not to scare anyone or do any fear mongering or kind of be clickbaity, but this is to give a general idea about recession and stuff which is happening around the IT world. Now, I do have experience of recession firsthand. Um I joined the tech industry in 2012 when there was a minor recession. So I got a campus placement in 2010 in my final year, and I only got the offer letter in 2012, which was, so I graduated 6 months later. So 2011 June I graduated, but I had to wait a full year to get my offer letter because that time also there was a recession. It wasn't as big, but there was a recession, there was slowdown, and so if you see, I also had to wait 10 months. So I know how it feels if you are kind of in the middle of the in this whole recession talk and your offer letters are delayed, or you kind of are not getting as many job offers or as many callbacks from recruiters. I completely understand the feeling. It is a bit frustrating, but you have to understand that these cycles which happen, recessions and everything, or almost all economic activity is cyclical. And cyclical, I don't know what is the correct way to pronounce it, but they happen in cycles. So if there's a recession, there'll be again a boom as well, then there'll be a recession as well. So this will keep on happening. So recession basically is a slowdown in global activity. So people stop spending as much or spend less, travel less, buy less cars and stuff like that. And as a result, these companies who give contracts or who outsource their tech world, outsource their tech work, they also kind of stop spending as much on tech, and as a result, the IT jobs are cut, or there are there's downsizing of projects, there is less packages on offer, or you might not get as many increments. Now, recession are also of two types. One is a major one which happened back in 2017 when there was an economic crisis in the financial crisis in the US and the West in general, and as a result there was a major recession or major layoffs and stuff like that happened. And then, as I mentioned, in 2012, 2018, stuff like that, there's small recessions where the economic activity is okay, it's not as much, but that also causes some kind of slowdown. So this is about recession, how it happens. The bottom line is it's a general slowdown in the economic activity, because in the pandemic world there was mad printing of money. There were so many VC backed startups. There was like mad money thrown at tech people. Like every tech share was booming, every tech company was booming. There was so much money on offer, and there were like irrational packages being offered everywhere. That is not sustainable, and that is, we are seeing the effects of that. People who are hired at that time at irrational packages, and companies which are doing that hiring, which had VC backed free money which was printed by the global banks, that money has dried up a little. Everyone is a bit cautious now, and as a result we are seeing some slowdown. But most of the fear mongering which is happening or which is being done on social media, I think that is coming from these tech giants, Twitter, Meta, Amazon related layoffs. But you have to also be rational about it and think of them as isolated cases as well. So for example, in Twitter's case, there's obviously a takeover by Elon Musk, and as a result, Elon Musk and the new board feels that there needs to be some change in the direction this company is going, and that's why there was downsizing. So you have to look at those layoffs in an isolated manner. Similarly, for Meta, which is Facebook's parent company, they're also investing money elsewhere. They're pouring money into the metaverse. It's not going per plan, but they're pouring money there. So that's why there's been downsizing. People who they don't feel necessary, or maybe on higher packages and stuff like that, or maybe are not performing, could be they they are being laid off to pour money elsewhere. And Amazon also, there's a reported layoff. I'm not saying confirmed reports. It's just that reportedly lay off 10,000 people and all stuff like that. But I think in general, the amount of money which was spent in 2021, we're just seeing repercussions of that. And there is now talk that, okay, because we have spent so much money and the money has dried up, now there's going to be a recession. So recession, that's the word. Everyone is going after it. But the thing about that is, as I mentioned earlier, this happens in cycles and there's not much control over it, because there are global bankers and global economies involved in this. So this will continue in cycles, and the whole world will be impacted in some or the other way. Now the thing about that, as I mentioned, is it's best to be prepared. You cannot control when a recession will happen. There'll be some signs, but it's an inevitable that a recession will eventually happen every few years. Whether it be a small one or a big one, it will happen. It has happened throughout the history, and it will happen going forward as well. There's nothing you can do about it. About stopping the recession, can you stop the recession? Probably not. Can we do something about it as tech people? Yes, we can. Start with also, I think the current, at the time of making this video, we are in November, December. So November, December, I think you also have to be aware of the fact that most of these tech industries or tech work comes from the West, and November, December is hiring freeze almost everywhere. November, December, January, because the Western, there's Christmas holidays and stuff like that. So there's a general hiring freeze. You don't have to confuse a hiring freeze with a layoff or a recession or a slowdown. Not the layoff, but a slowdown. So hiring is just a temporary freeze, because approvals are not, and everything might not come through, because obviously people need people who have to approve this are on Christmas breaks and stuff like that. So there can be hiring freeze in certain companies, but that should not be confused with a recession. So a hiring freeze is different than a recession, or a kind of a slowdown, or no hiring at all. So that you have to be mindful of that as well. We mentioned that was just to give an idea about how recession works. The crux or the whole gist is it happens in cycles. There's nothing much we can do to control it, but the best thing you can do is be prepared. Now, how you can be prepared? The first thing is constant upskilling. So tech is a very dynamic industry. Things are changing every few months, or every few years. New technology is upcoming, and new practices are happening. So that doesn't mean that you have to chase every skill set, every new language, or every new framework you have to go and learn, but you have to stay in touch with what is what is there in the market and what it is being used for. So you have to stay in touch with these trends which are happening in the industry, and try to keep in touch and be adaptable to these practices, and learn some skills which will keep you relevant. So the outdated skills also will be still you will, for the outdated skills also you'll get jobs. It's not that you won't get jobs, but the thing is the pay which is on offer won't help you keep in touch with the expenses and all. So you'll get jobs for outdated technologies as well, but the pay would not be as much. So it's best to keep kind of in touch with these new technologies, so that your pay remains competitive and you also remain relevant to the companies. So that is one thing. Constant upskilling, constant learning is must if you are in tech industry. You always have to learn something to stay relevant, not relevant, but to be job ready. So if a situation were to arise that you were to unfortunate circumstances that you were to get laid off, then if you are job ready, if your skills are relevant to today's market, you should have little less trouble than get others in finding jobs. People who are already in the industry, I think the major area of worry, or major people who are more worried about this, is unfortunately the generation which again faced the COVID pandemic as students. So they were first unlucky to miss out on college and stuff which is happening there, placements and stuff like that. And now they are hearing talks about recession. They're not getting as many. I personally know people who are kind of frustrated that they're applying to so many jobs, or there are not as many off-campus placements. But you have to understand that the world overall is a little bit cautious. So best to not get frustrated, especially in this November, December, January time. You have to let this pass. But in the meanwhile, what you can do is you can leverage resources such as Free Code Camp, Kaggle, Code Academy to upskill, build projects, and build relevant skills which will be necessary. Once this kind of worry about recession passes over, these skills will again be relevant, and there'll be demand and hiring like crazy. You have to just to be prepared. On the other end of this recession fear, you have to be prepared. Once the opportunities start coming, you'll again find yourself that okay, there's so many jobs. But if you're not ready, then you miss the chance. This is your time to prepare a project portfolio, post it on GitHub, build websites, or try freelancing or stuff like that, and then try to stay relevant and gain some experience. Third thing I think which is also important, and now I think people are realizing how important it is to contribute to open source. So if you're working on projects in the industry, you're working on production ready code, there is a lot to learn. The second best option, if you're not working on in an industry at the moment, or you're struggling for jobs and stuff like that, or you're in the job hunt process, contribute to open source. Use GitHub, use other forums where people are hosting codes, your favorite. So if your favorite framework, favorite language is open source, Python is open source, associated frameworks are open source, so you can look at the code, you can look at the issues, you can read code, and you can contribute to them. So contributions can be in any form: documentation update, code, you can code changes, stuff like that. That will keep you relevant. It will help you, so it'll give you experience of industry level. It will also help you make connections. You will connect to people who are like-minded, who are working in the same technology of your interest, and maybe that can also help you grab opportunities in the jobs which aren't available as part due to the recession and stuff like that. So that is the third thing, you can contribute to open source. That is a little bit about recession and what things, how things are. So just to sum it up, I think there is a fear of recession all around. It's not a lie. People are a bit cautious, but we are in November, December, January. Generally also there's a hiring freeze. It doesn't mean that IT companies are into recession. Doesn't mean that IT companies are necessary. All the IT companies are necessarily in a recession. Most of them might start hiring back in January, February and stuff like that. You just have to be prepared. Also, these big tech giants, they are isolated cases to as per, in my opinion, Twitter and Meta or Facebook, they are definitely isolated opinions, isolated cases, and you have to look at them likewise only. Amazon, will see how it pans out, how it actually happens if they do really lay off. But as I mean, and as I mentioned, the people who are on enormous packages back in 2021 and stuff like that, they will feel the burn of this. The packages were, I feel, which were being offered were irrational, and some of the people, there's always two sides of the coin. So if you're taking a high package, you have to make sure that eventually where the money is coming from, that source dries up, you're going to be the first in the line of fire. So that is also, we are seeing that effect also happening. So yeah, that's the whole thing about recession. Yeah, it's always okay to, it's always great to be prepared. You don't have to live in the constant fear that, okay, will I lose my job today, will I lose my job tomorrow, or will I ever get a job if you're fresher or currently looking out. Don't worry about that. Concentrate on what is in your control. Keep learning, keep building projects, keep contributing to open source, and keep making connections. So that is about today's video.